Some people don't argue when they're hurt. They go quiet, and the silence speaks louder than any words ever could. You've done this before. Something cuts deep, and instead of reacting, you simply withdraw into yourself without warning. The other person keeps talking, maybe defending themselves, but you've already left the conversation emotionally, even if your body stays. What you're doing isn't avoidance. There's a quiet psychology behind why silence becomes your shield when pain enters the room. This silence isn't weakness. It's a learned response built over years of feeling unheard when you tried to speak. You learned early that words don't always land. Somewhere along the way, expressing pain only made it worse for you. So you started saving your energy. You stopped explaining yourself to people who weren't ready to truly listen anyway. The silence became safer than the risk. Saying nothing protected you from being misunderstood one more painful time. But here's what most people miss completely. Your silence isn't empty space. It's the loudest emotional response you have inside. When you go quiet, your mind doesn't rest. It replays every word, every tone, every micro-expression you notice clearly. You're not ignoring them. You're processing something they couldn't possibly see happening underneath your calm exterior right now. This is the part nobody talks about openly. Going silent takes more energy than yelling ever could for someone like you. Imagine sitting across from someone who just hurt you. Your face stays still while your inner world quietly collapses inward. You hear yourself thinking, "What's the point?" And in that one thought, an entire history of disappointment surfaces silently. That's the deeper layer of your silence. It's not just this moment, it's every moment that came before this. People who go silent when hurt usually had to grow up too quickly in emotional environments around them. Maybe your feelings weren't welcomed at home. Maybe expressing pain got dismissed, mocked, or used against you later somehow. So your nervous system made a quiet decision. Protect yourself by becoming unreadable when anything starts to genuinely hurt inside. And here's where the real pattern begins to show itself. Your silence isn't about them, it's about survival. You're not punishing anyone with your quiet. You're protecting the parts of yourself that still feel fragile underneath everything. But to the other person, it can feel cold. They mistake your silence for distance, indifference, or emotional rejection completely. This is the painful irony you carry. The very thing protecting you also makes you look like the wrong one. You want to explain it sometimes, but explaining feels exhausting when you know they won't fully understand anyway. So you stay quiet. In the silence, build something invisible between you and the people who hurt you repeatedly. There's a name for this pattern in psychology. It's called emotional withdrawal, and it has a deeper purpose underneath. Your body learned that conflict equals danger. When pain rises, your system shuts down communication to keep you safe. It's not a choice you make consciously. It's a reflex shaped by every moment you weren't emotionally safe before. This is why you can't just talk it out. Your body has already decided silence is the only safe response. And there's something else happening underneath your quiet. You're watching them closely, noticing how they handle your silence carefully. Their reaction tells you everything. If they panic, you learn they cared. If they don't, you learn something else entirely. Silence becomes your quiet test, not because you're manipulative, but because words have failed you too many times before. If you've recognized yourself in any of this, drop a comment below sharing what your silence has protected you from. I'd love to know when you first learned that going quiet was safer than speaking your real feelings out loud. Because this pattern doesn't form randomly. It's built over years of being hurt for simply expressing what you felt inside. Now let's go deeper into what your silence actually means underneath the surface that other people rarely ever see clearly. When you go silent, you're not gone. You're hyper-present, more aware of everything happening in the room than ever. You notice their breathing change. You catch the small shift in their eyes. You feel the air thicken between you both. This heightened awareness is exhausting. It's why silence drains you more than any argument ever could in those moments. And while you're quiet, you're rehearsing. You're imagining every version of what you could say, then deleting each one carefully. You're not stalling. You're searching for words that won't make things worse, because words have done that to you before. But here's what hurts the most about this. Most people never realize how hard you're working inside that silence. They see calm. You feel chaos. They assume distance. You're actually closer to the pain than they could imagine. This gap is where loneliness lives for people like you. The space between what you feel and what others see. And over time, that gap widens. You start expecting people to misread you, and slowly you stop correcting them altogether. This is the moment something shifts inside you permanently. You stop fighting to be understood and start accepting being misread. It feels peaceful at first, like freedom from the exhausting work of explaining yourself to people who weren't really listening. But underneath that peace, something quietly aches. The part of you that still wants to be seen never fully disappears. You just bury it deeper. You let it live in the silence, where at least it can't be heard again. This is the hidden cost of going quiet. You stay safe, but you also stay slightly invisible to the people closest. And here's the part that takes years to understand fully. Your silence isn't the problem. The pain underneath it is. The silence is just the bandage. Underneath it is a wound that learned to stop bleeding by stopping the conversation entirely. Healing doesn't mean becoming loud. It means learning when silence protects you and when silence keeps you locked away alone. Some silences are wisdom. Some silences are wounds. The hard part is learning to tell the difference inside yourself honestly. When you go silent because someone isn't safe, that's wisdom protecting you from people who haven't earned your words yet. When you go silent because you've given up being understood, that's the wound speaking through the only language it knows. This distinction changes everything for you, because once you see it, you can finally choose your silence instead of defaulting to it. You start noticing when silence feels like peace versus when silence feels like a slow, quiet form of disappearing inside. And in that noticing, something powerful begins. You stop being controlled by old patterns and start writing new ones consciously. You learn that some people deserve your words. Not everyone does, but some do, and that distinction matters deeply now. You learn that your silence has worth. It's not your absence. It's your boundary, drawn carefully without needing permission anywhere. And you learn the most important thing of all. Being misunderstood doesn't mean you have to keep explaining yourself forever. Some people will never get it. That's okay. Their understanding was never the price of your peace to begin with. But the right people will notice. They'll see your silence and ask gently what's happening underneath, without demanding you perform. Those are the people worth breaking your silence for. Slowly, carefully, on your own terms, in your own time, always. Because silence kept you safe for a long time. But connection, when it's real, is what finally lets you exhale. So if you've spent years going quiet when hurt, know this clearly. You weren't broken. You were protecting something precious inside. Your silence was never weakness. It was the quietest form of strength you had when nothing else felt safe to use. And maybe now, slowly, you can start letting the right people in. Not all at once. Just one careful word at a time. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on when your silence has been protection and when it's been a prison. Share with me in the comments below what your silence has been trying to say all these years without words. If videos like this help you understand yourself more deeply, subscribe so you never miss what comes next on this journey. Because understanding yourself isn't a destination. It's a quiet, ongoing conversation between who you were and who you're becoming now. And remember this one thing always. The people who go silent when hurt aren't cold. They're carrying more than anyone sees. Your silence is not the end of the story. It's the chapter where you finally learned how to protect your own heart.